and welcome to Personal Playback, where we talk about things that matter to people who matter. My name is Sterling, and welcome to episode 1 of our movie series. Taylor, tell us who you are.
Hi everyone, I'm Taylor. I'm really excited to be here today. I am a graphic designer, videographer, and photographer professionally. And then on the side, I love to do anything creative. I love to embroider, I love to paint, I love to draw. Anything to get the creative juices going, I'm there.
So Taylor, how did we meet?
So my husband is Hunter. He's already been on your podcast.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't checked it out, it's a great one to listen to. I think he met you before I met you because you guys have the connection with music. I actually remember meeting you at a bonfire before our board game night, but we didn't talk to each other at all. I don't necessarily remember you per se, but I remember Ashley because I think she brought marshmallows and I didn't bring marshmallows, and so I had talked to her about taking some marshmallows from her for, s'mores, but I didn't really talk much to you guys other than like the group talking. And then we did a board game night, and I think we all became fast friends very quickly.
I honestly don't remember that at all.
Yeah. I'm a wallflower, so I remember weird little things. I don't know.
All right, well, we're here to talk about a movie called School of Rock. Taylor, could you give us, if you can, a spoiler-free review of the movie that you picked?
Yeah, so this movie is following midlife, maybe late 20s, early 30s individual named Dewey Finn. He is kind of a washed-up loser rock star, and he lives with his best friend and his girlfriend, or maybe fiance. I'm not really sure. I don't really remember. They were given fiance vibes, but it was a serious relationship regardless.
Yeah.
He was living with them. He wasn't able to pay the rent, and he will stop at nothing to get his dreams fulfilled and also his rent paid.
So, for our audience, feel free to watch it before or after this episode and consider your perspective. So, Taylor, what drew you to this movie initially?
Initially, I didn't have any draw to the movie. So it came out in 2003. I would have been like 7 or 8 years old. But we did have a kind of tradition of going to Blockbuster, rest in peace.
Yeah.
We went to Blockbuster a lot as a family, and my dad had picked out the movie. So he came home with the movie, and I just remember it being a cool opportunity because it was my first PG-13 movie. Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm a big girl now. Mm-hmm. I'm so excited. At that time, I hadn't been to like a movie theater. I don't remember going to a movie theater prior. So I was very big into watching movies at home at that time. And so with Blockbuster and us going so frequently, I think he was just ready to pick out another family movie. And I talked to my dad, do you remember why you picked out this movie for our family? And he says he doesn't remember, but he probably had picked it out because music was such a big part of his life. And so I think he just was excited to see kids playing music and how the story was going to unfold. So he picked that out for us as a family to watch.
Cool, very cool. Is there anything else that's relevant, I guess, that was going on in your life at the time that you watched it?
I think, as a 7-year-old, I had to have been maybe early 3rd grade at the time when it came out. I was always a shyer kid. I was also a creative kid. That was very prominent early on in my life. But I just had like a love for movies and love for story. And so I was excited to move into the more like young adult genre that this movie is. Mm-hmm. But I didn't really think that the story of like individuality and like learning your passions and your talents was going to be such like a pivotal moment for me. I think it gave me a lot of confidence in like what path I was going to, push for myself. But yeah, I think in terms of what was going on when the movie had come out on DVD, I was just a really shy, quiet kid that loved art.
You said 3rd grade?
Yeah, so I was trying to do the math on it. It came out in March of 2004 on DVD. I don't know when he picked it up. It could have been months after. It could have been like in the new release section and he picked it up on his way in. Mm-hmm. So I would have had to have been in like 2nd or 3rd grade. I think I was probably in 3rd grade, but I know that I had to have been 3rd grade because after that, or shortly after that, I went to my first premiere at the movie theaters, like late, when they used to do the midnight showings, and that was for Star Wars Episode 3, and I remember that because I was in 3rd grade when that came out. So, yeah, I don't, in terms of timing and everything, I don't really remember much of that timing.
Do you remember how old you were about in 3rd grade?
Like 7 or 8.
7 or 8, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a little younger than the kids in the movie, but still relatable.
Yeah. And I think when I was watching the kids in the movies, I just thought of them as kind of my age, and they were just at like a more challenging school.
Sure.
And I think as an adult, I still probably couldn't place what age these kids are. Like, I don't know if they don't give me high school vibes. They kind of give me junior high vibes. Sure. Maybe 6th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade.
Which scene stuck with you the most when you think about this movie?
I feel like I've watched this movie so many times throughout my lifetime and at different points in my lifetime that I don't remember one scene as like a standout scene for me. I think I do have favorite lines from the movie. I think that it's transcended into my life in terms of some of the things that I say is because of the movie. I watched it earlier this week just to recap it for myself. And I know that I do like the read between the lines, middle finger thing constantly. Like, if I'm not in a space where I can do it, it's a pop culture reference that most people understand. So it's like a sneaky, cheeky way of being able to be like, step off.
Yeah.
I also like to do Billy, the little kid that does the fashion. He says, "You're ugly and I hate you," which is something that I will say sarcastically to different people for different reasons. And then I think just like the stick it to the man, the stick it to your man neurosis, like there's little lines that are really unique and funny to me. So I'll like throw it out there every once in a while because I feel like it's a 20-year-old movie. I think most people have hopefully seen it or know the references of like why they're saying it. So
yeah, and now that you mention it, while I wasn't watching, I watched it last night, and there were a ton of times where I thought, hey, I've seen that before. I didn't know it was from this movie. Like, I've seen Jack Black jump off of a stage shirtless before, but I didn't know that it was from this. So maybe it's just the years of, commercials or something like that were rerunning, or even just ads for the movie, whatever it was. But it's definitely a very quotable movie, if not from the visuals and also from the direct quotes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, as an adult watching, like, what the kids were wearing on stage, it's like, perpetuating stereotypes of what, like, rock and roll is.
Yeah.
But, like, it's cute and cheeky and, like, not anything mean. But, yeah, it is very stereotypical in terms of that music scene.
Yeah.
Some scenes that I think will always stick out to me is the kids coming back from music class and discovering for the first time what musical instruments or what groups they're going to be in. I think Jack Black's character is a good, like, arranger in the fact that he could see people as their individuals and what they were going to be good at. I thought that was a really cool moment in the movie where he's kind of opening the door for that mentorship moment. I also feel like I will always remember Tamika coming up to Dewey and saying, "I want to be a singer." And even though she was so afraid to be singing in front of a crowd and even singing just in front of him, just because of what she looked like or her being quote unquote different than the other girls in the class, he was able to encourage her to do it. And she's like the best singer in the whole entire band. And I thought that was very impactful. And obviously the Battle of Bands at the end of the movie is very fun. And I think it showcases kind of the wrap up of the movie.
Yeah. So now, how did you feel before versus after the movie? And or did it change the way that you felt about anything?
Yeah, it's different watching it as an adult. I think the story is pretty impossible in terms of it happening in real life.
Yeah.
But I think that the story's, like, themes solidified kind of the values that I was seeing in myself at the time. I think when Hunter and I had talked about the movie together throughout the week, because we watched it together, he had said it's probably the first time you saw somebody that was celebrating like the individuality in the way that you celebrate the individuality of the people, and kind of that music genre and that like subset of people that believe that you can be creative professionally and you can appreciate humor with heart, and that those types of themes I think I was seeing in a movie and also discovering them in myself at the same time. And so it was cool to have like a visual representation of like some of the kids and what they were going through. As an adult, I'm looking at it and I can see the kids going through things at home, at school, struggles, both there and, away from home. And then you see the characters that are older that are struggling with like society's norms of like, what does being an adult look like? And can you keep that childish wonder of the things that you were passionate as a child? But I think as a kid, I related a lot to the guitarist, Zach, who was very shy, kind of just like went with the motions of the classroom. And he was picked to be the guitarist. And when he was picked to be the guitarist, because he was good at playing guitar in the classical sense, when he moved to electric guitar, he became very passionate about that. And he kind of went above and beyond. And because he went above and beyond and, wrote the song for some of the band and whatever, I think he built his confidence up. And I think as an adult reflecting on the movie, I could see how the passions that I had in the creative field helped build my confidence as I grew up.
So you talked about what the movie meant to you and sort of this blossoming of creativity and acceptance of creativity. Is there anything else that you think the movie was about? Like anything else that it's saying to a wider audience?
I think that it is saying like it's okay to follow your passions, obviously within the legal sense of following your passions.
Just break the law.
Yeah, break the law. I like the idea of being able to, not to stereotype because we are talking about music, but like march to your own beat. I like the idea of no matter if you have a dream, follow it. Obviously within the limits of the law. But I think for a larger audience, you have the character arc of Dewey, who is kind of like a loser. Actually, he's completely a loser. And as he comes through the journey of the movie, he kind of figures out that like, oh wait, I'm really passionate about like mentoring these kids, and I'm really passionate about teaching. And it's not just being in a band and being a rock star and sticking it to the man that I love about music. It's kind of that community that music brings. And it ends up in a space where he's able to showcase those skills where I don't think he knew that he had those skills. And I think on a broader scale, I think people can watch the movie and say that the journey that life takes you, you're never going to really know where it goes. And you might discover, I had a plan in high school, college, whatever. And then as you go throughout your lifetime and you get experiences and you get, the drama of life, you might find something that you're even more passionate about and find your life purpose and just like go for the ride, but don't be afraid to be true to be yourself.
Yeah. I think something that I felt when I watched the movie was, I think I don't relate to Dewey in a lot of ways, but one of the ways that I do relate to him is kind of the fact that, and it's a movie obviously, but the way that everything kind of just worked out. I think about that a lot when it comes to life in general, because half of it is luck maybe, but then the other parts are, doing it and getting help, and maybe parts of that as well are luck, but you can't really necessarily predict how, as you said, which way the life is going to go, which direction, or who's going to help you get there. But sometimes it just kind of does work out. Maybe not in the way that you wanted or thought or planned or whatever, Sometimes it just kind of does. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you strike gold, like a YouTube channel gets really big, mm-hmm. or sometimes your band gets really big. I think about, for me, I've always loved music, mm-hmm. and I thought, everybody wants to be in a band that makes it big and goes on tons of stages in front of tons of people, but I didn't do that, obviously. I work in a court. It's a very, very opposite setting, very legalistic. But I still get to make music. I still get to play with people, maybe not in the way that I thought I would have, mm-hmm. but life just kind of works sometimes, mm-hmm. And I thought that was a really cool thing about the character because, as you said, super illegal. Mm-hmm. So many laws were broken,
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, he didn't. I do like that it wasn't, and then nobody found out, and he just kept doing it, and the kids didn't get an education, yada yada.
Yeah.
It was like, no, you don't get to stay here anymore. Like they probably even off screen maybe put a restraining order, like you're not allowed in the school or something.
Yeah, there had to have been something off screen where the parents were just like, obviously the parents were leaving their kids again with them.
Yeah.
I can't imagine all of the kids being able to stick it to their parents and like sneak to a different location. Well, they've done it. And they did it, but like again, are they going to be able to do it again? So yeah.
Just the fact that he still got to do it.
Yeah.
And at the end, he still got to. He didn't have to just give up his dream in such a polar way that his friend did. What was Schneebly?
Mm-hmm.
Was it Ron?
Ned Schneebly.
Ned Schneebly. Because I've heard that a lot growing up, even from my father, of just, are you going to make money from it?
Yeah.
And if not, then it's kind of pointless.
Yeah.
And
that's definitely something that, as I went to art school. Mm-hmm. Originally, I wasn't even going to go to college. I was going to become a hairstylist. Mm-hmm. But I think throughout, I think I had a lot of interest in terms of like anything artistic. I didn't really know the world of art in a professional sense until...
Did you start with hair or did you start with art?
So I ended up I was in high school, and I feel like I've always been the person that has a bunch of random side quests, like a bunch of random jobs or a bunch of random things that I want to learn about so I get experiences in it somehow, whether it be a job or a club or whatever. And I think that was instilled in me at a young age because my parents had me try every sport, and then I could do any sport I wanted, but I had to choose one sport to do throughout junior high and high school. And randomly things have sprinkled through, like track sprinkled through when the season was available or indoor track. But I did have, one constant sport that I did that I'm still doing as an adult. And my parents instilled in me, it's okay to have random side quests and you can learn from them. And usually what you're doing will inform, your career path or whatever. I didn't know that I was going to go to college until probably the last quarter of my senior year. I had told myself I want to do something in the trades, which being creative and wanting to have more commercial job, I was like, hair would be great for me. I love doing my hair. I love coloring my hair. I wasn't allowed to color my hair until I was like 21. I didn't have any like hair colors or anything like that, but I've always like cut my hair shorter and kind of had more of a cropped pixie look than my classmates who had, super long hair. Yeah. Very individual in the way that I dress and perceive myself. But I had a couple of friends that were doing a marketing class. And when I was in 8th grade, we had the opportunity to be a part of a video production class. And it was to create a news show for the whole school. It was 1 day a week news show on Fridays. It was maybe a 20-minute presentation for the whole school, but it was live. And I really was interested in the background work of that. And so we would just rotate jobs throughout the school year and learn different types of broadcasting. How do you broadcast mics live? How do you broadcast cameras live, etc.? And then that video production love went into high school, which was a video production class that was very much like brought up by the YouTube era of like the Wild West of YouTube, when there was like no monetization, nothing crazy was happening. It was just like stupid skits, which is so nostalgic nowadays because that's definitely not what YouTube is anymore.
Yeah.
No freshmen were allowed in the class. sophomores, you were allowed one sophomore for the video production class because it was a junior and senior class. That was just the rule. I happened to hang out with the older juniors at the time, and they vouched for me as a videographer. So I got in my sophomore year. And then it was a new teacher, and so the class kind of shifted and changes like how it was created. But it was called a technical writing class, but really we just did video skits and messed around. And I loved the aspect of visual storytelling. That was like something that I really loved. I didn't think that I could be, a videographer full time and in real life. So then my junior year, somebody came in and said, hey, we have this marketing class. You can take marketing for 2 years. The catch is that you have to do these competitions every quarter. And like, I hate talking to people. It's not my thing to present in front of judges. It's not my thing to like be able to think on the fly and be, impulsive in the way that I can just like, what is the word we use? Not spontaneous, but like improv. I can't improvise and like come up with something on the spot. So I had a hard time in the competition part of the marketing class, but I loved the psychology of understanding groups of people. How do we communicate with these people? How do we understand our audience? And learning about that for 2 years in high school was really cool for me. And then the class knew that I drew, and I was drawing, since I was little. And we had to do some like competition where we had to design some portable fire like house for kids to learn about fire safety. And we like designed the outside of it, and I said, hey, what if we did a logo on the side, like a custom logo? Our team ended up winning, and so that logo went onto the side of that building. I was like, oh my gosh, it's so cool that like art can be translated into physical spaces and like communicate ideas and things like that. And that kind of sparked the idea of, well, what if I become a graphic designer? But I was in my senior year quarter, and to get into art school, you have to have a portfolio. So I just went really hard, really fast, and applied to the art schools that I thought I could get into. And yeah, I got some scholarships and stuff. I ended up staying more local, but I didn't know that I could get into, like even in college, you say you're going to art school and they're like, oh, are you going to draw for the rest of your life? Like, what are you going to do with your degree? Are you going to make any money making art for people? And I think that's what parents will typically say is like, well, you can be passionate about, your artistic endeavors, but like, how are you going to monetize that? Which I'm learning is not, you don't have to monetize every hobby you have. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think our parents are very similar in the fact that like, and maybe it's just a generational thing, is like, how do you set your kids up for success when it's not a stereotypical job? Yeah.
Yeah, I actually super relate to that part of your story where you're being creative, right? As you said, there's art and there's hair and there's video and there's drawing. And you have a side that you definitely favor. And for me, it's always been music. Ever since 6th grade, it's always been music. But I also enjoyed writing. And I thought, well, authors make money. Yeah. And so for a long time, well, I couldn't even really say a long time. It was once the college conversation started happening, which for me also was around junior, senior year. I remember my dad was basically like, all right, either you're going to college or you're getting a job. And so I was like, just trying to figure out what I was going to do. And writing was the one where, all right, that makes sense, And so for a long time, I was like, I'm just going to write. It's going to be my thing. And I remember my mom, it was a day that she was late. So I drove myself to school with her because I had like a temp permits or whatever. And she was running late, or I should say, making me late. And I was a little impatient. And I remember it was a really good conversation because she came in and she was just, Sterling, if I could have this chai tea every day, I'd be happy. What's something that you could do every day and be happy? And immediately I thought, Well, it's not writing.
Mm.
It's music.
That's such a good way to put it, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I'd be making music with people every day if I could. And I still sometimes think about that conversation and just how, not only immediate, but how just pivotal it was in my life. Because I still write today. I still enjoy writing. But it's funny, too, because the thing that does make me money now is my music. I haven't made a cent off of writing.
Yeah.
You know? So I really relate to just the idea that, again, it all kind of works out. Where I thought, this thing that I actually enjoy, I'm not going to be able to do this for a very long time.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to be able to sustain this thing either for free, or it's just not the thing that's going to help me make money. And it just kind of is. You know, I'm not in this huge band or whatever, but I still have a ton of gigs. I still get to play with and meet people through music. You know, it's just been, and I still get to enjoy it for myself.
Yeah.
So it's just been a really cool journey where both the people around me and myself thought it's not really going to work out. And it just kind of does. You know, so I think that's really cool, just about life and just kind of about the similarities, I guess, between our two stories.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you can also, I think you have the stereotype of musicians, and I think we're both very much in this personality trait of ourselves is, I think people think of musicians and artists and designers as like these, and they can be, these big, crazy personalities, type Bs, super like big, and I lean more on the methodical and analytical side of things. And so I think it's given me a unique perspective of like, well, how can I strategically plan where I'm going to be and what schools I'm going to get into and what is the next step in my career and all of that stuff. So it's been definitely an interesting journey to see like, and I had a hard time in art school because everybody was type B. There was no like the deadlines were like, yeah, it's due on Tuesday. And I would get it done Monday morning, ready to go for the critique. And like 90% of the class would be like, I'm not there yet. And I'm like, you have a deadline. Like, what are you doing? Like, where is your responsibility drive? But I think that's why I had a frustrating part. I did 2 years in art school, and they were just kind of all over the place in terms of, like, it wasn't linear cause and effect thinking. And I had a hard time with that. So I learned the principles of art, and then I moved over to more of a corporate art space where they were more intentional about making sure that the children in their college classes were hitting deadlines, understanding the rubrics and the briefs of the assignments, and it was more so tailored to kids that wanted to kind of move into the corporate space or into freelance positions of like, I want to own my own company. And I, of course, went into the corporate space. But yeah, as a kid, you don't really know these jobs exist until you learn about them and have experiences in life.
Yeah. Speaking of life, is there anyone that you know that this movie reminds you of in real life?
So I have like nobody in my life that I think would do this type of craziness in terms of the legality of all the things that, you know, Dewey did. I don't think I have a single person in my life that would do what he did and push so hard to get what he wanted. I think that I see a lot in the kids that are in the movie as an adult now. I think as a mom looking back into this movie, I see a lot of the struggles that the kids have gone through. I've known people in my life as a child and going into adulthood that have had struggles at home or struggles in the classroom. And I think that seeing the kids' journey throughout the movie, there are people in my life that echo what the kids had gone through. And I think everybody kind of builds the confidence in the direction of their life as they grow naturally, or hopefully they do. But I think that there's not, like when I was watching the movie, there's not anybody that I'm like, oh, that's Ned Schneebly, or oh, his girlfriend. I can't stop thinking it's ex-girl in my life or whatever. I think that it's probably good that they're all fictional characters because of Dewey just being such a crazy musician. And I think that I also surround myself with people that are different than me. And I think that this movie also sparked something in me that has this like drive for individuality and kind of like that subculture of like kind of like punk. I think I was already kind of exploring that space when third grade came around. But after that came like Rock Band and Tony Hawk and skateboarding and kind of that metalcore, punk, pop punk genre of like Warped Tour and everything that went through that early 2000s and got really, really popular with our age group. So I really fell into that culture. And I also feel like the kind of that like spunky personality. I do see a lot of my friends like as adults with that spunky personality because I think I kind of became a part of that culture and I still am part of that culture, and that's why I think I fell in love with like going to live concerts and things like that. I can't go to like a singer-songwriter concert. It's too boring. There's not enough energy for me.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy like running around, you know, a metal concert or like an indie concert, something with a little bit more energy. I really enjoy doing that. And I think seeing that movie at such a young age has opened the doors to how I interact with music because I'm not a musician. I'm married to a musician. I would say all of my friends are musicians or they're music adjacent. And so, or they're like me and they're falling into the groupie category of the movie where they're just fans of the band and they run around going to shows like me. And so I think I see a little sprinkle of my friends because I think my friends were also interested in that like rock and roll when I was a kid as well.
I think for me, I also thought about this question, and maybe, well, I shouldn't even say maybe, I don't see myself in doing.
Mm-mm.
But there is one realization, I guess, that he had that I really do relate to, and that's when, and it's also interesting because the only person that he really took any criticism from was the person that he had walked all over for years,
Mm-hmm.
which is Ned. But when Ned said, like, maybe you just weren't that good,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really the only time that he actually takes a lot of criticism from anybody else. And as he's about to go on stage with the kids, he's like, hey, I'm actually not that good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I talk big talk. I'm actually not a rock star. You know, maybe relative to you, but like, I'm just a guy. I'm just Jack Black. And I remember in college, I think it was maybe my sophomore year, I was just walking on campus, and I remember just looking up and going like, hey, to myself, I'm never going to be the next great insert thing here. Mm-hmm. Like, not trying to belittle myself necessarily, but just looking up and going, people have dedicated their entire lives to the instrument that I'm trying to learn. And I don't know if I even want to dedicate my entire life to this. And so I don't think that I'm going to be at the level where I'm like the person that they're talking about when they think of drums, period. You know, like, I don't think I'm going to be at that level. And just kind of going through a sort of mourning process, I guess, with that at that age. And I think about that with this movie because I think that's what allowed him at all at the end of the show when they lost to say like, hey, but we put on a good show. Mm-hmm. You know, I think if he had to have that mindset going in of like, I'm not the absolute best. He did get the crowd surf, which I think was fun. But if he went in going, I am the best, and maybe he would have thought these kids are the best too, maybe, I'll give him that, but if he would have thought, I am the best, I am going to win, we are going to make it big, whatever, I don't think he would have been able to be happy with the result at the end of it all works out. Again, you know, full circle sort of, but we put on a good show. And the kids, I think it was fun that the kids did remind him of that. Like, it's not about winning. It's not about whatever. Rock is about putting on a good show.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, sticking it to the man and putting on a good show. So I definitely related to that of just, it's not all about me, and I'm not going to be the greatest and the biggest and the best and the baddest, whatever. But I put on a good show.
I think that you calling that out is very awesome. I think, if I may elaborate on it.
Sure.
I think it's that, like, he cut his ego.
Yeah.
Like, Dewey's issue probably throughout the whole movie was he wanted to be this rock god, and he had the ego of a rock god, but not the talent of the rock god. And I think when he cut him down to kind of scale, he was able to kind of level with himself and be like, okay, like, what is this really about? And he was able to figure out, like, what am I actually passionate about? What am I really naturally good at? What are my natural strengths? And I think he realized a little bit before where, and correct me if I'm wrong, does he have that conversation with him and then he goes to the school for teacher parent night? Mm-hmm. And then he goes, okay, that makes sense. Because I think that car ride with Mrs. Mullins, the principal, I think he realizes that, like, he really cares about these kids.
Yeah. And
I think that the idea of mentorship became really important to him, and leading by example and leading in a positive way. There was kind of that pivotal switch for him, because he wasn't always leading in the correct way in the beginning of the movie. But towards the end of the movie, he did have a positive outlook. We're a team. This is about the music. It's not about winning money, which is what he wanted at the very beginning of the movie, to pay his rent and to have that fame. And I'm glad that I think that, is the catalyst of the movie, is those kind of 3 scenes. And I think it also is surprising, like, as a mom, you go into motherhood thinking like, oh, this is going to be awesome, and I'm going to love every moment of it. And I did love being a mom. We're foster parents, and so we have a unique opportunity to have different personalities in our house and different, cultures, and people come from different spaces. And I think in our family, we really do celebrate individuality and meeting people where they are today. And then I think one of my favorite things about being a mom and being kind of that middle mom is being able to mentor not only the kids, but the families that are, connected to these kids. And I think mentorship for me is really important. And we've jokingly said that we're like the community mom and dad, because kids are kids, and kids will always look up to the adults in their life. And so if you're able to, even if you don't have kids, if you're able to be a part of a kid's life and push them to follow their passions and what they are good at, and push their mindsets into a way that gives them that confidence and the individuality and like self-assurance, I think that that's been such a powerful thing that I've learned that I really love to do, just connecting with people younger than me. And I mentor a lot of the kids that come through our internship program now that are what we call green designers, because it's cool to see their confidence grow in their artwork as they have the 12-week internship. So yeah, I think that's another impactful story of the movie, is like he grew to love teaching and mentoring and all that stuff, which was something his best friend Ned was already doing. He already knew that he had that, but he didn't have the issue of ego. So I think I just realized that he didn't have the issue of ego. He already knew what he was good at, and he was just a sub. So, yeah.
Yeah, and everybody needs community. Nobody. I don't know if it's necessarily pushed by parents, or, as you said, by just generational stuff. But nobody really knows what's going on.
Yeah.
Nobody really has it all figured out. And so I, again, really like that the person that I keep just wanting to say Jack Black, but
I know.
that Dewey really took criticism from was Ned.
Yeah.
Even though for a lot of movies he's like, hey, I've been mooching off of you for years, and just let me do what I want, basically. But when Ned said, what if you weren't that good? And he goes, oh, well, I guess maybe there's some truth to that. And he says it to the kids, which is like a really vulnerable thing to do in front of a whole bunch of people that you're mentoring. It's like, hey, I'm not, like, you may put me on a pedestal, I guess, even just from the way that I come off. You gotta take me off of that thing, That's a really vulnerable thing to do.
Yeah.
And he did it right about as they're about to go on stage too. So yeah, I think that was definitely really cool, as you said, that he had to cut his ego.
Yeah. And I think our generation is getting better about being like, I don't know the answers, and I was wrong in that moment, and I'm sorry. And I think our generation is good at, trying to be better at communicating, building that community intentionally. And I think we're also trying to push younger generations, whether you're a parent or not, of like, include everyone and celebrate, and you know what I mean?
Figure it out.
Yeah, we can figure it out. If you feel the confidence to figure it out yourself, that's incredible. Not a lot of people have that. So go. But if you aren't somebody that has that self-assurance, there's other people around you that are feeling the same way. And I think a lot of kids feel like they're alone in their journey, when in reality, I think the 3 kids sitting next to them are probably feeling like they're alone in their journey as well. So.
Yeah. So one more question. What would you say to someone who wanted to watch it for the first time to prepare them or brace them maybe for the experience?
I feel like I went in it blind, and I think you guys should go into it blind too. I didn't tell you much about it when you were watching the movie going into it, other than like, I think we would make a connection with music in this way. But it's not all about the music. And it's just a fun movie. I think you have to remember that it's from 2003.
Yeah.
So it's, not as crazy cinematic as it could be, but it's just like a feel-good, funny comedy that hopefully you'll have a fun time with.
Very cool. Well, we can call it there. This has been Personal Playback, where we talk about things that matter to people who matter. And remember, you matter too. Thank you, Taylor.
Thank you for having me. I hope you all stick it to the man.
All right. And I'll see you all later.